Hi everyone, here's a quick video on how to bring an image into Gravit and cut out the background by applying a clipping mask. So let's start by finding our image on Google. I've already done a search for jaguar cats, and let's go ahead and just choose one of these. Now remember, you do not want to copy the image from here. This is just a low resolution thumbnail, small scale. So let's go ahead and click on the image. It needs to open up on the side window. And here we can see this is 1600 by 1200 pixels. This is where we are going to right click on the image and go down to copy image and come back over here to Gravit. And let's go ahead and start with a regular piece of computer paper, 8.5 by 11 landscape, US letter landscape. And let's go ahead and paste it, Control V on your keyboard, and it'll paste it right into Gravit here. All right, now to do this trace on this image, what I prefer to do is lower the opacity just so I could work. I don't need to see it in full brightness, but I like to be able to see my trace a little bit brighter, more contrast to it. I guess we could also use white as a border or a stroke color. So let's go ahead and start with our pen tool. And on this one, I'm going to, well, first let's get our pen tool set up. So on our pen tool, oops, let me deselect off the image. Okay, there we go. I had to deselect the image. Now go to my pen tool and let's get our pen tool set up by getting rid of the fill by clicking on the trash can. We'll remove the fill and the border. I'm going to start off with a nice bright color. Let's start with this. Let's go with this magenta here, or this bright pink. So with a nice bright color, and let's, oops, Control Z, I didn't mean to click there, and let's also increase this to a 3-point border, or a 3-point stroke. All right, let me go ahead and spacebar over. Now I'm gonna do this trace a little bit different this time. Let me go Control plus to zoom in once or twice. This method is going to be a little bit different than our previous traces. I'm just going to single click and create a bunch of straight lines kind of before and after a curve. So I'm just going to single click. I know this is different than the first method where you had to click and drag, but we're going to clean this up at the end. We're going to use this as just a quick method to do a trace. I'm kind of clicking wherever, sometimes basically before and after a curve. So there's the indent. Now this is going to be a little bit of a unique trace because we have all these whiskers, but I'm just using this as an example. And let's go ahead and just for the sake of the video, I'll do this kind of quick. I'll just go quick around this jaguar's head. All right. Now, once you're done, if you do a trace using this method with a bunch of straight lines, we're now going to go back and fix it by using the white arrow. So the white arrow is the shortcut D on your keyboard, white arrow D, which I'll now be using, and we're going to come to our curve, come to our path, come to the trace that we just did, and just click on each little line, and we could bend the curves so we could clean it. If you don't like the click and drag method, this method is quite easy. Just do a single click, quick trace around your image, and then come back with your white arrow and adjust all these curves to match whatever you were trying to trace. All right, I'm just gonna do this real quick. I don't need to get this perfect for this video, but as you can see, it's a quick and easy way to do a trace. All right, now to do our clipping mask, and then one more. All right, let's go Control minus, space bar to move my page over. I'm going to go to my black arrow V, it's my selection tool, and click off this. Well, let's go back to our image real quick. And what I do need to do is increase the opacity. Let's turn that back up. Now, to do the clipping mask is really super simple. You're going to come over here on the left-hand side to your layers toolbar on the image, and you're going to drag this image layer directly on top, not above it. This will just place it in front of it. And now the path is behind it. Control Z to undo that. Let's take the image and just drag it on top of it where it's pink, and now it actually applies a clipping mask. Now what's interesting about this clipping mask, let me hit Z for zoom, is it is still alive. We could come back to my white arrow D on my keyboard. Let's click on our path. Let's click on the, oops, I'm going to come to this layer. Click on the path here on this left-hand side if you can't get it to select, and we could still go ahead and change, and it actually edits the clipping mask live as you're adjusting the paths right here. So if you want to make some corrections, you can still, even though the clipping mask is applied. Now, there is one thing that is kind of optional I want to do is, well, oops, let's come back to our path. Now at this point, now that we've got it done, I don't need this bright pink path. So let's go back over here to our borders on the right-hand side. So I am on my path layer, borders. Let's go ahead and just, we could delete it with this trash can, or we could just turn off visibility by clicking on the eyeball. All right, so I'm actually going to do one more thing to kind of make this a little bit more realistic, is I'm going to make a copy of this. I'm going to make a copy of this, Control C, Control V. Oops, sorry. I need to make, sorry, got to make a selection of the whole thing of the path, the clipping mask and the image, Control C, Control V. And here's my first one. And here's my second one. Watch if I turn this off and turn this there. So there's this one. This is the one on the bottom. Oops, no. So this is this bottom layer, and this is the top layer. Now what I'm going to do on this bottom layer is I'm actually going to apply a little bit of a blur to it to make it a little bit more realistic. So let's go and zoom in. And on this lower one, the one that's beneath it, let me come down to blur. And we're going to do, and it's going to kind of, as you can see, it has a little bit of that, well, it blurs it, right? So this is with zero blur. Here is a 4.6. Here is, let's go with just like a 4 pixel blur. Now what I'm going to do, oops, sorry. Now what I'm going to do is turn on this other path, turn on this top one that is now visible, and it actually just gives it a little bit more of a realistic edge to it. Let me do this one more time. Let me turn off this lower layer. So there's one with the blur. It's very hard cut edges right here, but when I turn on lower, it just kind of gives it a little bit more of a softer glow around it, a little bit more realistic, even though this one is missing a lot of parts to it. All right, hope that helps with this clipping mask. Have fun.